Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the wrestling podcast Getting Over. We are a man short. That doesn't mean there's any less content. There are 4 sets of predictions. We're talking about last time's pay-per-view, this time's pay-per-view, all the wrestling news in between. It's still the same great wrestling podcast you guys know and love. Unless you're new, and if you're new, welcome. If you're new, before we go anywhere, let's just get a few bits of business sorted. Click that like button, click the subscribe button, share the podcast around, because you know it's going to be great. We all know it's going to be great. It's going to be great. If for some reason you get so far in, you're like, you know what, this isn't for me. I thought it was going to be great, and it's just great. I thought it was going to be like super great. It's only great. Untick them. How about that? Anyway, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast Getting Over.
Recording in progress.
That's right. Recording is in progress. And it's time. If I'm starting the podcast, you know what time it is. It is time for some Getting Over on the CookieCast network. So, welcome along to the very best wrestling-based podcast that CookieCast has to offer. It may be the only wrestling-based podcast that CookieCast has to offer, but that is not important at this time. Well, why is it the best? I hear you cry. Well, it could be the news section that we deliver up every time just before there's a premium live event / pay-per-view. Could it be the predictions that we make? Probably, so you know to pick the exact opposite to whatever I've said and actually get some right. Well, no. The thing that makes it the best is me being joined by these two lovely gentlemen this evening, clearly. However, we are one man down. So, the eagle-eyed amongst you on the old YouTubes will have spotted we have no Mr. Williams, although I do have some predictions from him. I am not saying that he is possibly one of the new members of the Wyatt Six under a mask at the moment, and that is why he's not here, but if it turns out to be true, then he definitely heard that here first. However, we still do have the head honcho of CookieCast Towers himself, Mr. Andy Cook, alongside podcast regular Mr. Matthew Bow. All good?
Yeah.
So we will get cracking with the predictions title as per usual. And after a new champion was crowned on the last episode, me, WWE brought the battle for the predictions title to home shores with last month's Clash at the Castle. First things first, anybody see much of it?
Bits here and there. Highlights, I think, is the word.
I've seen highlights and clips.
It wasn't too bad. I quite enjoyed it. Originally, I was hoping to be able to go with my kids, but when the ticket prices came out, didn't really fancy remortgaging the house and next door's house and the rest of the street to be able to go. So we had American night in our house and had hot dogs and M&Ms, and obviously not together, that would be weird, amongst a few other things, but we had a nice night still watching it. It was nice to watch it at not the arse crack of dawn, which helped massively. I did think, however, the best match of the night was probably the Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles match for me. I enjoyed that. It's probably a shame for them in the running order that they burnt it early doors. Because then there was only kind of one way from that point. Obviously, we had Drew in the main event, so there was going to be the build back up with the crowd, if nothing else. But yeah, we had, predictions-wise, we had 3 clean sweeps last time around, so the title was decided on the tiebreaker. The trend of the 5-match card is continuing and looks set to continue for the foreseeable under Triple H. So would we need another tiebreaker? This is the point now where both Matt and Andy are panicking because I've not asked either of them for a tiebreaker. And that tells you No, we didn't. We didn't need a tiebreaker this time, so you can you can rest easy, gents. But we did have another clean sweep. Not 3 like last time, just the 1. So in last place this time around, with a brave but also very daft 2 out of 5. The man conspicuous by his absence, hiding in shame somewhere, Mr. Paul Williams. He decided that Belair and Cargill were going to retain the tag titles, as did myself and Andy. He decided that Gable was going to take the Intercontinental title. Nobody else picked that. And he said Drew would win by disqualification. Also didn't happen. So 2 out of 5 for Mr. Williams. So yeah. But then we jump up to joint second. Again, not the clean sweep, but a very close 4 out of 5 was myself and Andy. Meaning that he's done it, ladies and gents. He's walked straight back into the predictions and reclaimed what many are now describing as Matt's title. I mean, that was definitely what Sarah said earlier. Yep, that's right. Clean sweep, 5 out of 5, Matt. The new predictions champion. Congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you very kindly.
The call that won it was Alba Fire and Isla Dawn winning the women's tag titles, which, in hindsight, was probably the pick to make. It's easy to say that now, being on home soil, but I couldn't see him doing it. But you know,
it was a throw it out there, kind of not be the same as everybody else, and kind of play for points kind of move, and it kind of worked off, and it worked out, and I kind of sat there going, "Oh, okay then, that kind of worked."
And more shockingly as well, they've actually, to the point of the recording, they're still holding on to them. Thought it would be a quick switch back, but no, still going. So yeah, we'll move on to the news section now. So we have had quite a few things happen since last time, so I've got little points on all of them. But there's only one place to start, because it's been the absolute pinnacle of the coverage of anything WWE since last time we were on. So the Raw after Clash at the Castle saw the debut of the Wyatt Six. We finally got the answer to who was behind all the QR codes and the static breaks and everything like that over the last few months. And I don't really think anybody doubted who it was going to be. I don't really think anybody expected the initial debut to be quite so impactful. Have you guys seen what happened?
Yeah, the backstage kind of thing where multiple people were dead, and yeah,
it was. I thought it was quite cool. I like the fact that they had the door like they had previously when there was the Uncle Howdy Bray Wyatt stuff. So that kind of instantly you knew what was going on with the light coming from behind the door. But I like the fact that each of the different characters within the group almost had their own area of destruction.
Yeah.
And poor old Chad Gable being crumpled up in a corner looking like he'd been shot in the head with actual, well, maybe not actual, but definitely theatrical blood shown on the TV as well. So they're harking towards the grittier side again. But yeah, we did indeed get the artist formerly known as Bo Dallas returning as Uncle Howdy, a debuting Joe Gacy, a returning Eric Rowan, so one of the original Wyatts, Dexter Loomis and Nikki Cross making up the group. As far as I know to date, I think only really Bo Dallas has been seen on TV as kind of himself and the character, whereas the rest of them have still been in character. There's been some cracking promo stuff doing the rounds online and on the TV shows, particularly from him, which I've enjoyed very much. With last week sort of confirming that Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy are one and the same, kind of in the same way back in the day that it was like that Bray Wyatt and The Fiend were the same person, which was really well done. So I think it's had a really strong start. I'm a little concerned for how it's going to translate to in-ring action, because if they're allowed to kill people in the backstage area, what the fuck are they going to do when they get into the ring? So yeah, we'll see. The other weird thing as well, have you seen this thing about the VHS tapes?
Yeah, where Nikki Cross, or Sister Abigail, she's meant to be, is like the dropping them off at Michael.
Yeah, but bringing them down to the announce desk and putting them in front of Michael Cole. I assume because they're delivering the message on VHS, they assume because he is the only person at ringside old enough to own a VHS player in this day and age. But yeah, the mask what they've got for her is quite scary, and she's kind of got the little head tilt thing down. You can almost see from back in the day when she was like the crazy like Nikki Cross character, how that's gonna kind of help her going forward. So yeah,
have you seen the fan shot from behind the announcer's desk?
Yes.
So obviously it's been doing that. At that point you're like, oh god, no, that's a bit too kind of realistic.
It's the character kind of aesthetic kind of reminds me of like the thing off the Ring where like the girl crawls out of the TV. Very like they kind of get that kind of vibe from it. The rest of them with the sort of the pig mask and like the vulture mask and all the rest of it, don't really know what vibe I get from that, other than the fact that you'd absolutely shit yourself if if you found yourself in the dark next to one. But yeah, it's been good. It's a good start, so we'll see where that translates to. We'd mentioned on previous podcasts about seemingly this deal between TNA and NXT. That seems to be continuing. We had Frankie Kazarian and Joe Hendry turn up in a number one contender battle royal, and since that point, the internet and most of the wrestling community seems to have absolutely gone nuts for Joe Hendry, which rightly so. He's got a lot to offer, particularly in the all entrance music department, as well as his in-ring stuff. So happy to see him getting a bit of a spotlight. I feel like it was a bit of an unfair trade. No offence to the person I'm about to mention, but NXT got Kazarian and Henry, and TNA got Tatum Paxley, who I'm guessing that two of the three people on this podcast might not even know who she is. Almost three of the people on this podcast don't know who she is. She's been on the TV that little. No, she was. She's been doing the rounds a little bit in NXT, but not really had much of a prominent role. And not only did she then appear on TNA, but they just fed her to Jordan Grace, who absolutely knocked 10 bells out of her. So yeah, that was fun.
Did I see that Regal's son was there as well?
Yes, that was more recently. That was the point of recording. That was last week, so like 2 weeks before Money in the Bank. Yeah, he turned up and mid-match and pushed somebody off the top of a turnbuckle and caused a bit of interference.
But still not. Like, you know, the top of the card at TNA are coming to NXT, and people that have lost their way a little bit at NXT would. I
mean, that's probably a little unfair on Charlie Dempsey, although his group kind of consisted of some people who might not work there anymore at one point. I think he'll get his run. I think he's good enough. Tatum Paxley did the whole Stalker of Lyra Valkyria kind of a deal. If I remember rightly, and wasn't amazing at it.
Right.
For my money, anyway. Obviously, she's doing better than I am in that regard. But yeah, wasn't my favourite. It was like
it felt large. You could stalk her.
Yeah, I'll probably get in prison for that. But, like, it feels a little bit like how many times do you have to do the Mickie James Trish story is what it felt like. And obviously I'm aware, I've watched it for long enough to know that they do recycle from time to time, but it was just a bit odd. Anyway, so yeah, the exchanges seem to keep happening. For me, it would have made more sense to have sent Roxanne to TNA to fight for the Knockouts title, have her lose, so that created a rubber match situation, seeing as she beat Jordan Grace at the NXT event last time we were talking. And then, if they really want to muddy the water, make the rubber match for both titles. That'd get people talking. Not sure. I believe that might be the old phrase of booking themselves into a corner with how they determine the outcome of it. But it'd be interesting to see. So aside from talent moving different places, we also did have one person quit their job for about 4 days. Drew McIntyre left Raw after failing to take the title in his home country at Clash at the Castle. He came out conveniently quit and left the arena before any of the Wyatt Six attacks started to happen, so he wasn't around to take any of that flack. Clever boy. But then he did turn up on SmackDown the following Friday to confront and absolutely obliterate CM Punk in front of his home crowd. So getting his own back in Chicago there. And again, bit of blood on TV. It seems to be going that way again. It was really well done. I really enjoyed that bit, particularly the reveal with the garage door going up, and it looked really good. Very impressed. And it's just another sort of chapter to that story. And I'm not to foreshadow too much, but I'm guessing we're going to be discussing that story a little bit further on once we get to the predictions. Some bad news in the regards of Asuka's injury. It's still not been confirmed what the surgery that she had was, but it has been confirmed that her knee injury is likely to take her out of action for the rest of the year. Although, we all know what that means. Rest of the year, the next pay-per-view is the Royal Rumble. So, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. On the basis of we saying about the blood and the grittiness and stuff, Triple H actually did do a press conference. Was it press conference? Oh, it might have been an interview, possibly. I want to say a Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
Comfort. Go on, Matt. Sorry.
Because I think if you go and find that, there's I think Pat McAfee talks about when he bought a wrestling ring for his barn as well, and talks about how him and his mates tried running the ropes and that hurt, and then they tried to do a elbow drop, and he's like, yeah, that hurt as well. So then they tried to just take a bump, and he's like, yeah, that hurt. So then it just sat in a barn for years and forked out a load of cash to buy a ring half cut. I think he said, and he's like, oh yeah, it turned up at my house a week later. I was like, oh shit, when did I buy this?
Is that whilst he was still playing, by any chance?
That was when he was still playing. I think if you go and look on his Instagram, I'm pretty sure he bought it with one of his first paychecks as a rookie. So it's not even he'd not even been playing very long. So,
oh my god! Can you imagine that? You turn up for work, Gaffer, I can't play at the weekend because I've hurt my leg. You know, the one job that I have for the entire team. How did you do it? Was it a car accident? You come off a bike? No, my mate elbow dropped me in the leg.
I mean, the brutal world of the NFL. I mean, if he would have got injured, he just would have got cut as well, being a punter. They do not give a fuck about a punter.
So on that podcast, Triple H did confirm that in the move to Netflix from January, it will mean that WWE is not subjected to the same censorship as they currently have to work to on the cable networks in the States, as was, meaning that the product is likely to get edgier, full stop, but they're already moving that way. There was some reports from after some of the Wyatt Six stuff in the last few weeks where the crowd have been getting involved, chanting holy shit, that they've even been censoring that, and it kind of takes away from the atmosphere when you're watching it yeah, I get it, it's a swear. We've already done a few swears, but hopefully Andy can censor that out for us at some point in post-production.
No. There's a reason we have the explicit banner. I display it with pride for certain podcasts, because sometimes you've just got to get the swearsies in.
Well, we all know how offensive Paul can be as well, so another reason why he's not on today. So I kind of look for it to get worse, but also better, I guess, in that regard. We shall see. Another person that's left, actually, whilst we talked about Drew Fick quitting, as it were, somebody that has actually left is Kayla Braxton. After 8 years of being a backstage interviewer, it's time. Yeah, she's going back to her real name of Kayla Becker, and she released the news on Instagram, working her final WWE event at Madison Square Garden on the 28th of June. I mean, if you're going to go out, Madison Square Garden is the way to do it, and she's been one of the better broadcasters I think that they've had, particularly during the COVID era. Again, with the all of like the Raw talk and the SmackDown post show stuff that they were doing with Daniel Bryan at the time, and people like that, and particularly her rivalry, if that's the right word, with Paul Heyman, who seemed to like getting one up on each other on a weekly basis. But yeah, really enjoyed Kayla Braxton on her time in WWE, and I guess good luck with whatever comes next. The sad news, if you like, to finish the news section up, was that we did have a passing. So a seeker of the Wild Samoans, the older people that might listen, like myself, will remember the Wild Samoans. If you don't know who I'm talking about, it's the dad of Roman Reigns. So a pillar of the Anoa'i family, unfortunately passed away. The WWE have, as you can imagine, tributes in only the way that they can do it, with the archive footage and making sure that the Dwayne gets on every possible bit of all of the tributes, all about. There's the Dwayne. A little bit more about the Wild Samoans. There's the Dwayne again before it goes off. That's just me being bitter. He was an old guy, so I'm not sure what cause of death was, but he was getting on a bit. But obviously, kind of sad times for Roman, because it's not a nice thing to have to go through. But for a guy who laid the groundwork for Samoan dynasty as well, in not just in WWE but in like the wrestling world itself, it's a big character, I think. It's somebody who like a lot of the tag teams of kind of more recent times, you're not telling me that there's parts of the Dudley Boys that weren't influenced by them. Certainly parts of the Nasty Boys, obviously a little bit older, but even though they weren't probably too far after. And it's the influence they had on the business will carry on and be seen for years to come. So yeah, a bit of a sad end to the news section, if you like. Yeah, I think because of that being such sad news, maybe it's time to just take a little pause, grab yourselves a little drink, and obviously if you're listening, you don't need to grab a drink. You might have a drink. I'm not your dad. We'll be back before you can say Money in the Bank.
Recording in progress.
See, did you say it? And we're back. Here we are. And speaking of Money in the Bank, it is time for some Money in the Bank predictions. This year's Money in the Bank is the 15th anniversary of the first standalone pay-per-view, which seems ridiculous that amount of time has passed. But this time it comes to us live on Saturday the 6th of July from the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. It's the first Money in the Bank to be held in Canada, but the second consecutive one to take place outside of the US, because last year it was in London. Yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously it has to be miles away from where any of us live, much like Clash at the Castle has to be miles away from where any of us actually live. But let's we could be better about that all.
One day, baby.
I can never imagine the day though where that's going to be. Oh, we're coming back to the Ice Arena in Hull for the first time in. Not going to happen. But yeah, this Money in the Bank is one of my favourite events outside of WrestleMania and the big four, as it were, mainly because of the unpredictability. I mean, who would ever have thought they'd see Brock Lesnar with a boombox? It happened at Money in the Bank. As always, for the predictions, the match card information is taken from WWE.com and is correct at the time of recording. As I mentioned earlier, seems to be the norm this time. So Triple H era, 5 matches on the slate for today's podcast. So we shall get straight into it. And we're going to start with a main event in its own right. What has the potential to be an absolute banger. No, it doesn't have Sheamus involved, but it is the World Heavyweight title. So Damian Priest defending as champion against none other than a returning Seth freaking Rollins. Seth Rollins is back. You heard that right. Obviously, a few weeks at home after knee surgery with the wife and child was enough to make him want to rush back to work. Strange. But yeah, Rollins officially returned on June the 17th on the edition of Raw, making it his first TV appearance since dropping the title to Drew at WrestleMania 40. Rollins seemed set to enter Money in the Bank itself, however, got into a bit of a verbal sparring session with Damian Priest, who then offered Rollins a title match in order to prove that he is actually good enough to carry the titles that Rollins built. The stakes didn't stop there though. Wasn't happy with those stipulations, and new ones were unveiled the week after the match was initially made. So basically now, if Rollins loses, he can't challenge Damian Priest again for the title. If Priest loses, as well as handing over the gold, he has to leave Judgment Day. Now, normally, when they do stupid stipulations, it kind of leans one way or the other. As to, like, you know instantly it's going to be that. I think they've been quite clever with this one, because there's been quite a lot of friction within Judgment Day recently. And Rollins probably deserves to be around the top of the card for the most part, and to have one of your major players taken away from the title picture also feels like a bit of a big deal as well. The friction within the Judgment Day is mainly being created by the whole Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio situation that's been still playing out since the last time we were on. That's only developed further to the point where Dom has ended up on top of her at one point. She has ended up on top of him at one point. Carlito seems to be caught in the middle of all the Judgment Day stuff and is very much enjoying what's happening, including one particular text message that was shown to the group. And just, it's worth looking up that clip just for his facial expression alone. So yeah, they've done their best to make this one somewhat more unpredictable. But I guess my question, as always for you gentlemen, is to decipher which way this is going. Now, I mentioned I have Paul's predictions already. He has put them in ahead of time. So I will give you Paul's predictions from the off. We'll let Paul dive straight in. And he has gone for a retention in this one. So he's gone for Damian Priest to retain. Andy?
I've gone literally the other way.
Straight back to Seth, yeah?
Yeah, Seth freaking Rollins. Feels like with the time away and I know you were saying like it's like the stipulations sort of a bit more even, but it feels a bit to me more like it does lean a particular way. So yeah, that's the way I've gone.
Okay, you're in the book for Seth Rollins. You will also be pleased to know that this week, seemingly, subliminally, we might have got the start of the process of dropping the freaking from the middle of his name. He was only referred to on TV as Seth Rollins during commentary, and it was only the ring announcer that still left it. So they might be starting to drip feed that into people's subconscious now to get rid of it. Yeah, that'd be good. I think Seth's a decent pick. I think in like I say, because of the way that they've stacked the stipulations, mainly not because of the he can't then compete for the title again bit, but because of the level of friction in Judgment Day at the moment. There was a particular flashpoint on Raw this past week with Finn Balor saying to Damian Priest how much he's changed since he became world champion, and not necessarily for the better. And there was definitely a really kind of standoffish vibe going on. So maybe him leaving because of a stipulation might be the flashpoint that would ignite a Finn Balor feud, perhaps, as well, which would be good. So yeah, you're in the book for Seth. As I said, Paul's gone for Priest. Matt?
I've also gone for Damian Priest as well. I don't know, Seth can go and do other things and it not really be a big deal that he's not in the title picture. I don't think he needs a title. Whereas I think they can probably drag the Judgment Day thing a little bit longer.
Okay.
They've got quite a bit going on with that. There's like too many different things, I think. Maybe there's a way of kind of getting rid of that. If Damien Priest leaves. But yeah, the Liv Morgan thing's weird. Like, as you know, it just seems to be pulled very thin right at the moment. It seems to be like, we've kind of got our cash cow. When considering they also have the bloodline as well. But yeah.
It's setting it up nicely for the fact that Rhea Ripley's return will probably be imminent by SummerSlam, do you reckon?
Yeah, but she's kind of got married, hasn't she? So
yeah, She that's the point actually. Yeah, her and Buddy Matthews. But yeah, when the return comes back, it's set for her to come in looking like an absolute beast again. And I presume that she will not only be ripping Liv Morgan a new one, but the entirety of Judgment Day based on what's happened since she's been out of action.
Bashing heads together and stuff like that.
Exactly. To that end, I have also gone for Damien Priest, so that leaves Andy out on Points Island potentially. The reason I've picked Priest is because on a normal situation, I would have said that Rollins comes back, first match back after he's been out injured, loses, they drag it out to the next pay-per-view. They can't do that for two reasons. One, because of the stipulation, and two, if you remember last time we talked about the fact that Gunther had won King of the Ring, so he's next up at SummerSlam. Priest versus Gunther, two big men. I think that if Priest is dropping the title, I think it will be to Gunther, and I think there'll be some shenanigans in that department. As Matt said, I think Rollins has got enough to do on his own, doesn't necessarily need, particularly that title that he spent the best part of last year building the reputation. If he does win, if Rollins does win, I don't think it would be terrible for him. If Seth does win, I think it would nigh on kill off Damien Priest because of the amount of stuff that Judgment Day, like as Matt said as well, have got going on at the moment. It'll also become the third most important part of that, behind the Dominic Mysterio stuff, behind the Finn Balor kind of potential mutiny that's coming. And I don't know that he's necessarily strong enough, not character-wise, but just in terms of like the way that he carries himself. With at this point for me, the title is making the man, not the other way around. Whereas Rollins was obviously a very different story. So I think Priest needs to hang on to it for now, which is why I've selected that one. So we started with the top title. We're going to drop the second match in, and we're going to go down to the mid-card title. So the Intercontinental Championship is on the line at Money in the Bank. Canada's own Sami Zayn defending against Bron Breakker. Bron's been on a bit of a tear since making his Raw debut. Wasn't included in King of the Ring, and boy does that roster know about it. Ask Ricochet, who no longer has a job as a result of that storyline wise after being put through a windscreen. Windshield, if you are that way inclined. Zayn is coming off a bit of a draining feud with Chad Gable, but hasn't really got any time to rest on his laurels, with Bron Breakker looking to end the title run. There's not really much in this one other than a hungry young superstar trying to make his name against a bit of a ring veteran. For me, if this had been the Vince era, it would have been billed as the musclehead coming from the title from an indie guy, and we all know what happens there. Will the Triple H era be any different, do we think? Paul has said no, effectively. He has gone for Vince's favourite musclehead kind of style, so he has gone for Bron Breakker to become the new Intercontinental Champion. Matt?
I've gone the same. I think they're trying to build him as a beast, and the best way to kill that, ask Karrion Kross, is to have him lose to someone he definitely shouldn't lose to. So I'm going to go with the Canadians are going home disappointed. It's not Montreal, so it's not that big a problem kind of thing. So yeah, unfortunately, title change here. Bron Breakker to be the new Intercontinental Champion, and that kind of starts his ascension to where Gunther is now, effectively.
So you are in the book for that one. I am going to say that Sami Zayn had his big moment in Montreal with Roman Reigns last year, lost in front of his home crowd. He got the payback effectively at WrestleMania last year, winning the tag titles with his best friend. Another big event this year, WrestleMania comes. He beats the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time in Gunther for the Intercontinental title. Makes a big fuss. Gets a t-shirt and a hoodie with his wife on it. Rocky Styles. Yo Khadija, I did it. Cool. So he's had a loss. He's had a big win. He's going to lose, isn't he? So I have also gone for Braun Breaker. And the reason that I dropped that prediction in there before going to Andy this time is because now, for the second prediction in a row, that gives Andy his chance. He's not only sat out there in the deck chair, he's gone full on Lilo potentially out there on Points Island. Which way is this one going, Mr. Cook?
There will be no points for me, I'm afraid, because it's a clean sweep. I've also gone for Braun Breaker. It just feels the most fit in this one.
I mean, having been fortunate enough when we was away last year to see him at NXT, he is an absolute unit, and I'm not sure if it was if it was even possible. He looks even more athletic than his dad and his uncle in that regard. He is so fast. The thing with him having the spear as one of his go-to moves as well. For me, he does it better than Roman Reigns. The rate of knots that he gets up is just unreal. So I won't be disappointed if he does win. For him, although I am a Sami Zayn fan, so I'd like him to hang on to it if he can. But we'll see. We will see. So we've just talked Sami Zayn, but what of his former tag team partner Kevin Owens? Well, he's also featured in his home country. But he is part of a 6-man tag team match. He is part of Team Cody Rhodes, along with Randy Orton. And they are going up against the new iteration of the Bloodline. So Cody's issues with the Bloodline have continued. After beating AJ Styles in the I Quit match at Clash at the Castle, Solo Sikoa marched to the entrance area to issue a huge beatdown on the current WWE champion. Kevin Owens, however, and the Viper Randy Orton appeared and then even the odds somewhat. On the 21st of June, Solo Sikoa brought in another reinforcement to the Bloodline, however, in Jacob Fatu. He emerged, assaulted Randy Orton and Kevin Owens, then hit a Samoan splash on Cody from the top rope all the way down to the announce table. So the addition of one extra member of the Bloodline took out all 3 members of the team that are facing them effectively this coming weekend. For those of you keeping score in the Bloodline Stakes who are asking who Jacob Fatu is, Jacob is Rikishi's nephew. That makes him the cousin to Solo, Jimmy and Jay, and he's the more distant cousin of Roman Reigns. So he's definitely in there. We know Cody's team. It's going to be Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton and Kevin Owens. What we don't know for definite is which 3 of the 4 Bloodline members are going to line up for their match in Toronto. It will just be the guys on their own, albeit obviously still with a numbers advantage, because they have also excommunicated Paul Heyman from the ranks this past week on the basis of he wouldn't acknowledge Solo as the new head of the table. And that is Paul Heyman out for, well, the foreseeable, I should imagine, very much until Roman Reigns himself comes back. Watch this space. So yeah, we're looking at 3 of the 4 of Solo Sikoa, Tamatanga, Tongaloa and Jacob Fatu to go up against Cody, Randy and Kevin. I'll kick this off with Paul again, seeing as he's not here. He has gone for the Bloodline. I didn't get any notes on this from the man himself, but I can quite almost hear him in the distance saying it's effectively a brand new team. They're not going to lose their first match, surely. I've got Team Cody. I've got Cody to win on the basis that they absolutely squished him after his match at Clash at the Castle until Owens appeared. Jacob Fatu, as I mentioned, absolutely squished him on SmackDown. It feels like he's owed one. We shall see. But yeah, I've gone Team Cody. Paul has gone Bloodline. Andy?
Bloodline for me, please.
Ooh, he's gone with Paul. Okay. Same reasons as I suggested that Paul would probably have said, or you got a different.
So I think I agree with the whole. Cody's had a bit of a run of it. He could do with getting a bit of payback, but I feel Paul's probably right in it's essentially a new team. What's the point in forming a new team to then have them lose straight away? In a lot of ways, it also ekes it out that little bit more. Takes it like another pay-per-view further. Obviously, we're already starting to see talks around Roman Reigns and everybody's favourite making a return some point soon. So, yeah, I think largely, yeah, the new team thing is kind of swinging it for me.
Okay. Part of the reason I went for Cody is because at the moment Solo's like basically swinging it around, acting like the big I am. If he can't get a team together that wins, then Roman comes back. Then what? That was kind of my kind of take on it. Plus as well, I don't know what you guys think to this, but all the talk about Roman coming back and potentially coming back at SummerSlam, for the length of title reign that he had and for the prominence that he's had over the last sort of 4 or 5 years in WWE, almost feels a bit too soon.
Yeah.
I don't know if he just needs a bit more, like October, November time. Maybe Survivor Series, maybe Hell in a Cell, whichever way that falls. I
think the problem you've got is that run, that long run. He's basically been like the tip of the spear for so long that I think from a company perspective, they're a bit like, oh, well, we don't know what to do. We've always had that point that everything focuses in, everything goes into that. For him, yeah, we all know what it's like. You've been working non-stop for X amount of time. You need a break. You need some time off. You need to readjust. Obviously, we saw the video clips of him walking away from that match, and he looked a bit broken, and as you would expect, you need that time where you need to readjust. You need to spend time with family, get a holiday in, etc., etc. When you're working at that level for that long, that clock starts ticking almost immediately. So before long, you start getting a bit twitchy. It's like, oh, when can I get back to it? When's a reasonable amount of time to get back? The company will want him back as soon as possible. I mean, got to keep those t-shirt sales up somehow. And I imagine it's just 2 points coming together to say, we want you back, you want to come back, let's make it happen. The only thing, and this was a bit of one of those, the only thing that made me think more of it is obviously your boy is deep in filming at the moment, so his availability will be basically non-existent. Also, he's had a little bit of an injury as well, so I think I know the two go hand in hand, but I don't think we're seeing the Dwayne anytime soon. So
I saw the injury, that huge lump that he had on his elbow. That was that was grim.
Delicious.
The other thing as well, on like a more personal level, I wonder if the passing of his dad has kind of will end up delaying things, because obviously he might need a bit of time to himself, but time to get family stuff in order, regardless of the storyline side of the family, like actual real life stuff. I wonder if that might just be almost another sort of point to tip the scales to maybe push his return further down the line, maybe somewhat.
Yeah.
Which then, as you rightly alluded to, could line up for him and The Rock to come back tag team style once again. We'll see. So that leaves us then 2 votes for the Bloodline, 1 vote for Team Cody. Matt's either going to leave me on my own or he's going to join me.
I'm leaving you on your own. I've gone for Bloodline as well.
Okay. I'll be rooting extra hard for Team Cody as it were then, just for that point. Same reasons as we've been discussing, or anything to add?
I just think obviously there'll be a bit of shenanigans. There always is. They've got, obviously they're trying to establish themselves. So, and the kind of like Solo Sikoa seems to be a little bit more underhand, even more underhand than what Roman Reigns was, kind of thing. So I just think there's going to be some kind of underhandedness.
The other, like, he just seems to be a bit more desperate to get himself established as like the leader of the group, and I think that's where that stems from. But the other reason for me picking Team Cody was because I feel like we're at a very dangerous point for Cody's title run, and the fact that obviously he's not defending the title. But since he beat the guy who's been like the most dominant champion in the history of the company, I don't really feel like he's had a particularly strong showing since WrestleMania. Rightly or wrongly, part of me also doesn't think that the international events have really done him any favours, because they've not given him that big, like, not established, maybe established is the wrong word, but current sort of legitimate threat. Like, who would have thought that AJ Styles would have taken 2 of his title defences since WrestleMania, when AJ has done pretty much nothing for the last 8 months?
Yeah.
I just feel like he needs a bit of revitalising already, otherwise they're going to end up taking the title away. I still feel like they're selling merch off him off the back of the finish the story, and nothing's really evolved past that just yet. But yeah,
there aren't many. With everybody tied up in their own story, there doesn't seem to be anybody for him to wrestle at the moment. There is no big star at the moment, because Drew's got his like CM Punk thing going. Obviously, Seth's been out injured and is now with Damian Priest. So you're kind of like, right, well, who's the next kind of person? I don't know if they're going to try and establish the bloodline as that. It seems like a desperate one, and none of them seem legitimate for it. Yeah, and then you kind of look within his own team, and you kind of think, wow, well, is Orton, like, that's not really going to move any dials anywhere. There's got to be something big coming. They've got to do something significant soon. They've got to push somebody soon, or they've got to take someone off their current program to kind of come and fit in. Otherwise, like you said, we're going to be. I mean, we're already nearly 4 months down the line, and people are like, not really wrestled anyone yet. Kind of done 2 matches with AJ Styles, which you'll always get a really good match with AJ Styles.
Yeah, absolutely. They were good matches, both well received, but it's that credibility issue. It's like, what have you done for me lately style, in the sense that AJ's had a great career, but if he's sat on his ass for most of the last 8 months and had 2 good matches against Cody, people very much give it the so what treatment. Like, if AJ Styles had been there in the ring every week and had been beating Owens and Orton and everybody else left, right and centre, fine. But he's not, and there's no steam there to kind of give any like credibility to him as a challenger for me. So yeah, I agree. I think a part of me wonders how much they're going to put their eggs in the one basket of this censorship thing as well, because I think to get somebody like Orton to be in that position of then challenging, it's going to have, at the moment he's like the babyface, and I know there's the whole you can't trust the Viper situation, what have you, but there's going to have to be a real shift in his character to get him to be like punt you in the skull kind of Randy Orton again. And it's like, it feels like there's too much time they've got to wait between now and January to get him back there once they hit Netflix again, but we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens. Right, moving along, we've got everybody's in for that one. Yep, we have. So we'll go to the women's Money in the Bank match. As always, it's 6 participants. This time we've got Io Sky, last year's winner, Naomi, Io Sky versus Naomi versus Lyra Valkyria versus Chelsea Green versus Tiffany Stratton versus Zoe Stark. And as per usual, all of the entrants to the ladder match have had to go through qualifying. Io, again, who won the ladder match last year, and ended up with one of the better SmackDown Women's title runs since Becky, I think. She returns to the field, having beaten Kiana James and Zelina Vega in a triple threat. Chelsea Green lines up in her first Money in the Bank match after beating Mi Chin and, surprisingly, Bianca Belair. Chelsea, as well, whilst playing heel, has seemingly gained a big crowd support in recent weeks, particularly with the crowds in Scotland, SmackDown and Clash at the Castle. Those crowds were really behind her and seemingly did her a real big favour, I think. Another Money in the Bank debutant taking part this year is the Queen of the Ring finalist, Lyra Valkyria. She defeated Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane to earn her spot. Tiffany Stratton defeated Jade Cargill and Candice LeRae, and Naomi beat Blair Davenport and Indy Hartwell to earn their places. The final entrant will be Zoe Stark, after she defeated Ivy Nile and Dakota Kai on the go-home edition of Raw. I think this is a pretty level playing field, and arguments could be made for each of these women to take the case. But I'll keep the wrap-up brief. Who's it going to be? Who have we got? Again, I'll go with Paul, seeing as he's not here. He has gone for Chelsea Green. Matt?
I've gone for Tiffany. I just couldn't pick one out of the 6. I didn't understand. There was no, obvious one, so I just went with Tiffany. Maybe she can do something nice with the briefcase.
Right. Andy?
Weirdly, I was with Paul earlier today. However, I am with Matt now. I'd asked about any additional points for this because if I'd have ended up going the Chelsea Green route, I was also going to go for a cash in as well. But having made a change, I'll save that. I'll keep that powder dry. Just one there for Mr. Williams, since he's not here.
I would have 2 months ago. I would have agreed with you that she was nailed on to win this. However, she seemingly hit a few misdemeanors on the old internet of late. So I don't know if they've just put her in because she's got that kind of level of she should be in the match as opposed to that she should be winning the match. And I'm not sure. I have a feeling that they're going to strike whilst the iron is hot on this one and go with Chelsea Green and use it as a bit of a character shift from being like the sort of chicken shit heel to kind of actual full on babyface. So I have actually agreed with Paul. So we've ended up, out of the six possible picks, we've ended up splitting it 50-50 between us, with me and Paul with Chelsea and you guys with Tiffany. Also as well, it would make perfect sense for her to customise the case with like a veil and some sort of hat like she wears to the ring too. So that's always a benefit. And finally then, we shall move to the men's Money in the Bank match. Much like the women, all of the men had to qualify via a series of triple threat matches, and we've had Jey Uso, Andrade, Chad Gable, Carmelo Hayes, LA Knight and Drew McIntyre all go through the triple threats. Jey Uso beat Finn Balor and Rey Mysterio. Andrade enters his second Money in the Bank match after defeating Kevin Owens and Grayson Waller. Chad Gable weirdly enters maybe as favourite. Might sound a little bit crazy, but hear me out with this. Not only did he qualify after having to come back from seemingly being shot in the head by the Wyatt Six, but he then had to beat Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed to qualify. That guy is the size of probably one of their thighs. That's it. Carmelo got a shock win over Randy Orton and Tama Tonga to qualify for his first attempt to become Mr. Money in the Bank. And LA Knight joined the field after beating Logan Paul and Santos Escobar, albeit with a little assist from New York Knicks player Jalen Brunson. The final man to put his name on the match card was none other than the Scottish Warrior, Drew McIntyre, and he defeated Ilya Dragunov and Sheamus on the final Raw before the Premium Live event. I feel like this is a real mixed bag. I think there's some real potential worthy winners in there, and some really like what the fuck booking. Like, the question is, which side of the that particular equation does the winner emerge from? Paul, pulling no punches, straight in. He lost at Clash at the Castle, but he's got Drew McIntyre down to take the case. Matt is shaking his head vigorously. Let's go straight to Matt.
I mean, it's the most obvious CM Punk is going to screw him out of the Money in the Bank. I mean, that. But however much money you've got to put it all on that, because that's definitely going to happen. I've gone LA Knight, because I just think it's who's going to do the best thing with it. I always think with the Money in the Bank thing is who could probably use it, who could do something shitty with it, and who's probably going to do something cool with the briefcase. And I would put LA Knight in the bracket of all those three things.
Okay, Andy?
I'm with Paul. I've got Drew down for this one.
The only way I can see Drew winning it is if he then tries to immediately cash it in and then CM Punk screws him. But then they've burnt the case in one night, and I don't know that they'll do that. I've gone, again, striking whilst the iron is hot, and different to you guys. I've gone for Jey Uso. I think that he'll win. And I think that there's more to come between him and the Wyatts on the basis of the Fireflies, as in the people in the crowd with their mobile phones, seem to have migrated somewhat towards Jey Uso. And I think there's a bit of a, like, are they going to help him or are they going to screw him over, kind of a which way will it go kind of a deal. Plus as well, I wouldn't mind seeing Jey Uso win the title, particularly if Damian Priest manages to hang on to it past Gunther. But that's another story, if you like, for another time. So we do have a difference of opinion on quite a few of them. I think the only clean sweep we've got is that we all think that Bron Breakker will beat Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title. So that, in theory, should lead us to some clear-cut winners, hopefully, for the predictions title for the next episode. Have you gents got anything else you want to discuss? Mm-hmm. All right. All good. Well, that brings the predictions to a close, and also this episode of Getting Over. So the only thing left to do is to thank these gents for being with us and getting through all of this information, all of these predictions, and obviously to thank you guys very much for watching along and listening along. If you've not done so already, head on over to YouTube, give us a little like, share, and a subscribe, and it would all be very much appreciated. Enjoy Money in the Bank. Enjoy your weekend of wrestling festivities, and we shall see you next time around. Thank you.
So there you go. What do you think to that? Fantastic. I'm sure you'll agree. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. If you want to send us your predictions, if you get them in before... I was going to say if you get them in before the event, but that only gives you a few days. But that's the fairest way of doing it. If you want to send us some predictions, and you can get them in the next few days, and you either, how about this? You either beat us, or I'll do you one better, beat the lowest score, we'll send you a prize. They'll be wrestling based. Deal? Deal. Obviously, you'd need to like, share, subscribe, comment, leave reviews, and obviously go to the website where you will be able to email us or get on the old social media. The cookiecast.com is the website if you want to get in touch. That is it for this one. Till next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
How awesome is that? So awesome. You gotta like, share and subscribe.